The stars burned bright against the black void of space as Commander Zelathar watched his world die. From the bridge of his flagship, the Kaltheron Defender could see the enemy fleet advancing like a swarm of metal insects. 200 Vorkon warships moved toward his homeworld, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Zelathar's hands trembled as he gripped the command console. His fleet of 60 ships had fought bravely for 3 days, but now only 14 remained. The Vorkons were too strong, too many, too ruthless. Every hour brought more death, more destruction, more screams over the communication channels as another Kaltheron ship exploded into fragments. "Commander, the orbital stations are failing," his second officer reported. Her voice cracked with fear. "Kalthera Prime has maybe 2 days before the shields collapse." 2 days, 48 hours until the Vorkon ground forces would land on his homeworld. Zelathar had seen what the Vorkons did to conquered planets. They took everything. The strong became slaves in their minds. The weak simply vanished. Entire civilizations had been erased by the Dominion's endless hunger for expansion. "Send another request to the Galactic Council," Zelathar ordered, though he knew it was useless. The Council had debated for weeks while the Vorkons slaughtered his people. No help was coming. The other species were too afraid, too weak, or too far away to matter. An explosion rocked the flagship as Vorkon plasma fire struck the port side. Alarms blared throughout the bridge. Zelathar grabbed his seat to keep from falling. He could feel his ship dying around him, systems failing one by one. "Commander," a young officer called out from the scanning station. "Sir, I found something in the old archaeological database, something from the ruins on Theta 9. Zelathar wanted to dismiss it. What good were ancient artifacts now? But something in the officer's voice made him listen. "It's a beacon, sir. We found it 20 years ago but never activated it. The translation says it calls for help across the stars. It promises that someone will answer." "Who?" Zelathar demanded. "Who would answer?" "The file doesn't say. But, Commander, we have nothing left to lose." Zelathar looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed Vorkan ships everywhere. Blue markers for his own fleet were scattered and fading. He thought of his family on Kalthera Prime, huddled in shelters as enemy bombs fell from the sky. He thought of the millions of innocent people who would die, or worse. "Activate it," he said quietly. "If there's even the smallest chance, we have to try." The young officer's fingers flew across his console. Deep in the flagship's databanks, a signal began to build. It was old technology, something beyond what the Kaltheroni understood even now. The beacon drew power from the ship's core, growing stronger with each second. Then it launched. The signal tore through space itself, traveling faster than light, faster than anything the Kaltheroni had ever built. It carried a simple message in 1,000 languages. "Help us. Please, someone help us." The signal raced across the galaxy, passing dead worlds and dying stars, crossing the territories of 100 different species. Most never detected it. Some heard it but turned away, unwilling to face the Vorkon Dominion. The beacon searched desperately for someone, anyone, who had the strength and the will to fight. Far away, on the edge of the galaxy, the signal reached a small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was finishing his shift at Deep Space Station Gamma when his console began screaming alerts. He nearly spilled his coffee as warning lights flashed red across every screen. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, pulling up the signal analysis. His eyes went wide. "Oh my God!" He hit the emergency comm. "Command, this is Station Gamma. You need to see this right now." Within minutes, the signal was bouncing up the chain of command. From Jake's monitoring station to Earth Defense Command, from junior officers to admirals, the alien distress call spread like wildfire. Nobody had ever received anything like this before. Admiral Lisa Brennan stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, staring at the wall of screens showing the decoded message. Translators had worked for hours to make sense of it, but the meaning was clear enough. An entire civilization was dying. They were begging for help. "How far away?" she asked her tactical officer. 412 light-years, Admiral. About 6 days' travel at maximum speed." 6 days. Lisa had served in Earth's military for 30 years. She had trained for alien contact, for possible wars, for every scenario the strategic planners could imagine. But nobody had planned for this. Nobody had expected to receive a desperate plea for help from the other side of the galaxy. "What do we know about the attackers?" she asked. "Not much, Admiral. The signal includes some tactical data. The enemy calls themselves the Vorkan Dominion. Based on their fleet composition and tactics, they're a conquest-based empire. They've destroyed or enslaved at least a dozen species that we can identify." Lisa walked to the star map, looking at the distant point where the signal originated. Earth had been exploring space for 70 years now. They had met a few alien species, established some trade, learned that the galaxy was full of life. But they had also learned something darker. The galaxy had predators, species that took what they wanted and destroyed anyone too weak to stop them. The Galactic Council talked endlessly but did little. The peaceful civilizations cowered while the strong preyed on the weak. "What are our chances?" Lisa asked quietly. Her tactical officer hesitated. "Unknown, Admiral. We've never fought a major galactic power. Our weapons are different from standard designs. Our ships are built heavier. We might have an advantage, or we might be sailing into a massacre." Lisa thought about the message they had received. She thought about the fear in that alien commander's voice, the desperation of an entire species facing extinction. She thought about what it meant to be human, to have the power to help and the choice to turn away. "Get me the president," she said firmly, "and start preparing the first expeditionary fleet for immediate departure. We're not letting these people die alone." "Admiral, are you sure? This could mean war with a power that controls dozens of star systems." Lisa turned to face her officer. Her eyes were hard as steel. 70 years ago, we wondered if we were alone in the universe. We hoped we'd find friends out there among the stars. Well, we found them. And now our friends are in trouble. So yes, I'm sure. We're going to war." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kalthara system, and what they saw made every crew member fall silent. The battle had turned the space around the alien homeworld into a graveyard. Debris from destroyed ships floated everywhere, spinning slowly in the darkness. Emergency beacons wailed from crippled vessels, calling for rescue that would never come. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the EDF Vengeance, her command ship, and felt anger rising in her chest. The tactical display showed the situation clearly. A handful of Kaltharon defenders were clustered around their planet, shields flickering and failing. Surrounding them like wolves around wounded prey were over 200 Vorkan warships. "Get me a damage assessment of the defending forces," Kate ordered. Her voice was calm, but Captain Danny Hayes, standing beside her, could hear the fury beneath it. "The Kaltharon fleet is down to 11 functional ships," reported Commander Lily Carter from the tactical station. "Their planetary shields are at 30% and dropping. They have maybe 12 hours left." 12 hours. Kate looked at the enemy fleet. The Vorkan ships were sleek and deadly, their hulls painted in dark colors that made them hard to see against space. They moved with confidence, taking their time with the kill. They had no reason to hurry. No help was coming for the Kaltharoni, except it had. "Communications, send a message to the Kaltharon flagship," Kate said. "Tell them the Earth Defense Force has arrived. Tell them to hold on just a little longer." On his dying ship, Commander Zelathar nearly collapsed when the message came through. The translator struggled with the alien language, but the meaning was clear. Someone had answered the beacon. Someone had come. "Who are they?" his second officer asked, staring at the sensor readings. I've never seen ship designs like that. Zelathar didn't care who they were. Hope, which had died in his chest days ago, suddenly sparked back to life. Send them our tactical data, everything we know about the Vorkans, and thank them. Thank them for coming. The Vorkan fleet had noticed the new arrivals too. Fleetmaster Drakon, commanding from his massive battleship, studied the unknown vessels with mild curiosity. 43 ships, all of similar design, all heavily built. They looked primitive to his eyes, blocky and inelegant. Scan them, he ordered. Identify their species. His science officer worked for several minutes before shaking his head. No match in our databases, Fleetmaster. We have no records of these people. Their power signatures are unusual. Very high energy output for their size. Drakon wasn't concerned. The Vorkan Dominion had conquered dozens of species across half the galaxy. One more unknown race meant nothing. If they were foolish enough to interfere, they would learn the same lesson all the others had learned. Send them a message, Drakon said. Tell them this is Dominion territory. Tell them to leave or be destroyed. The message reached the Vengeance within seconds. Kate listened to it, her jaw tightening. She looked around her bridge at her crew. These men and women had trained their entire lives for combat they hoped would never come. Now it was here, and she needed to make a choice that could save millions or doom them all. Open a channel, she said quietly. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. When the channel opened, Kate's voice carried across the void to every ship in the system, both human and alien. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. Vorkan vessels, you have attacked a peaceful civilization without cause. You have murdered innocent people. You are given one chance and one chance only. Leave this system immediately or face the consequences. On his battleship, Drakon laughed. The arrogance of these unknowns was amusing. They threaten us? With 40 ships against 200? He turned to his weapons officer. Target their lead destroyer. Show them what happens to those who challenge the Dominion. The Vorkan fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons, which had melted through Kaltheron armor for days, lanced out toward the human destroyer EDF Relentless. Captain Steve Warner, commanding the Relentless, watched the incoming fire on his screens. "Brace for impact!" his tactical officer shouted. The plasma bolts struck the Relentless dead center. The ship's shields flared brilliant blue, energy crackling across the defensive field. Alarms sounded for a moment, then went quiet. "Damage report," Steve barked. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez checked her console, then checked it again. "Sir, shields are at 94%, hull integrity at 100%. That barely scratched us." Steve felt a grin spreading across his face. The scientists had been right. Human ships, built to withstand the crushing gravity wells near gas giants, mining operations in asteroid fields, and the radiation storms of deep space, were far tougher than standard galactic designs. "Return fire," he ordered. "All batteries. Show them what Earth brings to a fight." The Relentless's railguns spoke with thunder that didn't need air to carry. Tungsten slugs, each one weighing several tons, accelerated down magnetic rails to a fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy in each projectile was enormous, more than most alien torpedoes could deliver. The slugs crossed the distance in seconds. Vorkan shields, designed to stop energy weapons and conventional explosives, did nothing against solid metal moving at impossible speeds. The first slug punched through a Vorkan cruiser's shield like it wasn't there, tore through the hull and exited the other side. The ship broke apart, secondary explosions ripping it to pieces. The second and third slugs destroyed 2 more ships before the Vorkans even understood what was happening. "All ships," Kate said into the fleet-wide channel. "Weapons free. Hit them hard." The human fleet opened fire as one. 43 warships unleashed a storm of metal and destruction. Railgun slugs tore through Vorkon vessels like paper. Missile pods launched smart munitions that dodged and weaved through enemy formations. Point defense lasers created a web of light that vaporized incoming fire. Drakon watched in horror as his fleet began dying. "What are those weapons? Why aren't our shields working?" "They're using kinetic projectiles, Fleet Master," his science officer screamed. "Solid metal at relativistic speeds. Our shields can't stop them." "All ships, evasive maneuvers, return fire with everything." The Vorkan fleet tried to fight back, but they were designed for a different kind of war. Their plasma weapons and missile systems had worked perfectly against every enemy they had faced for centuries. But the humans were different. Human shields absorbed energy weapons with ease. Human armor was so dense that even direct hits barely dented it. And human ships moved like nothing the Vorkans had ever seen. The destroyers and frigates danced through space, their crews pulling maneuvers that should have crushed them with G-forces. But human inertial dampeners were more advanced than standard galactic technology, and human pilots had trained in simulators that pushed them to their absolute limits. Captain Ben Foster, commanding the carrier EDF Thunderstrike, launched his fighter wings. Commander Nicole Patterson led the first squadron out of the launch bay, her fighters' engines blazing bright. "All wings, this is lead," Nicole said over the comm. "Target their weapons platforms. Keep them off our capital ships." The human fighters swept into the battle like hawks among pigeons. They were smaller than Vorkan fighters, but impossibly fast. Nicole pulled her stick hard, dodging plasma fire that would have vaporized her ship, and lined up on a Vorkan weapons platform. Her missiles launched, each one guided by targeting computers that could track 100 objects at once. The platform exploded in a ball of fire. Nicole was already moving to the next target, her wingmen following her lead. The Vorkan fighter pilots tried to intercept, but they couldn't match the human speed and maneuverability. Commander Zelathar watched the battle from his crippled flagship, unable to believe what he was seeing. The humans were destroying the Vorkan fleet with contemptuous ease. Ships that had seemed invincible for days were breaking apart under human weapons. The tide of battle had reversed completely in a matter of minutes. "Who are these humans?" his second officer whispered. Zelathar shook his head. "I don't know, but they're saving us." On the Vengeance, Kate coordinated the attack with cold precision. She had positioned her fleet perfectly, cutting off Vorkan escape routes. Captain Danny Hayes worked with the destroyer group, herding enemy ships into kill zones. Commander Lily Carter fed targeting data to the weapons crews, prioritizing threats and maximizing damage. The battle lasted 90 minutes. When it ended, the Vorkan fleet was crippled. Over 140 ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors clustered together, their weapons silent, their shields failing. Fleetmaster Drakon stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His mighty fleet, which had crushed countless enemies, had been torn apart by a force 1/5 its size. His pride, his arrogance, his certainty of Vorkon's superiority, all of it lay in ruins around him. A communication came through from the human flagship. Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on his screen, and Drakon saw no mercy in her eyes. "Vorkan forces, this is Admiral Sullivan. You are defeated. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any ship that attempts to flee or fight will be destroyed. You came here to murder innocent people. That ends now." Drakon wanted to refuse, wanted to order his ships to fight to the last, but he looked at what remained of his fleet and knew it was over. "We surrender," he said, the words bitter in his mouth. The news of the Kalthara defeat spread through Vorkan space like a plague. Every ship that had escaped, every panicked transmission, every garbled report told the same impossible story. An unknown species had appeared from nowhere and destroyed a Dominion fleet in less than 2 hours. The Vorkan High Council met in their throne room on their capital world of Vorkath Prime. 12 ruling members sat around a circular table, each one representing a conquered territory. At the head of the table sat Supreme Leader Crathnall, who had ruled the Dominion for 40 years. "This is unacceptable," Crathnall growled, his clawed hand striking the table. "One fleet's defeat I could understand. Perhaps they were surprised, caught unprepared. But to lose so completely to such a small force? Fleetmaster Drakon has brought shame upon us all." "Supreme Leader," one of the council members said carefully. "The reports are consistent. These humans have weapons and defenses far beyond what we expected. Perhaps we should investigate further before taking action." Crathnall's eyes blazed with fury. "Are you suggesting we show fear to primitives? We are the Vorkan Dominion. We have conquered 40 systems. No unknown species will threaten our power." Another council member leaned forward. "What do you propose, Supreme Leader?" "We will send a message these humans cannot ignore," Crathnall said coldly. "Prepare the Second Armada, 300 ships. We will find their homeworld and burn it to ashes. Then every species in the galaxy will remember what happens to those who defy us." The order went out within hours. The Second Armada, held in reserve for major campaigns, began gathering near Vorkath Prime. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and carriers assembled into the largest fleet the Dominion had sent to war in a decade. Intelligence officers worked frantically to track where the human ships had come from, following their faster-than-light trail back across the stars. They found Earth. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Brennan received the warning from long-range scouts. Commander Greg Palmer, her intelligence chief, brought her the report personally. "Admiral, we've detected a massive Vorkan fleet assembling, 300 ships all heading this way. Based on their trajectory and speed, they'll arrive in 72 hours. Lisa looked at the star charts, showing the approaching threat. She should have expected this. The Vorkans had suffered a humiliating defeat. They would want revenge, and they would want to make an example of humanity. "Has the first expeditionary fleet returned?" she asked. "Not yet, Admiral. They're still helping rebuild Calthera's defenses and recovering wounded. We can recall them, but they won't arrive before the Vorkans do." Lisa shook her head. "No. Admiral Sullivan is needed there. We'll handle this ourselves." Greg looked worried. "Admiral, 300 ships is more than we've ever faced. Are you sure we can win?" Lisa walked to the window overlooking Earth Defense Command. Below her, thousands of people worked around the clock, monitoring space, coordinating defenses, preparing for threats just like this one. She thought about what humanity had built in 70 years of spaceflight. When they had first reached the stars, they had been cautious and afraid. They knew the universe might hold dangers, so they had prepared. Every asteroid in the belt had weapons platforms hidden inside. Every moon around Jupiter and Saturn had been fortified. Mars was covered in defensive installations. And Earth itself was protected by the most extensive network of defenses ever constructed. "The Vorkans sent a fleet to Calthera to slaughter civilians," Lisa said quietly. "Now they're coming here to do the same to us. They think we're an easy target because they've never faced real resistance before, but they're about to learn something important. This isn't Calthera. This is Earth. And we've been preparing for this our entire lives." She turned to Greg. "Activate all defense stations. Recall every ship to the Sol system. And send a message to the civilian population. Tell them to remain calm. Tell them their military is about to show these aliens why you don't threaten humanity's home." The preparations began immediately. Defense Station Guardian Prime, commanded by Captain Helen Morris, powered up its weapons for the first time since it was built. Helen walked through the massive station, checking every system personally. 5,000 crew members worked to ready the station for battle. "How's it looking?" she asked her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Ellis. "All weapons green, Captain. Shields at full power. We've got enough ammunition to fight for a week straight." Ryan paused. "Captain, are you scared?" Helen considered the question honestly. "Terrified," she admitted, But I'm also angry. These Vorkans think they can come to our home and hurt our families. They're about to find out what happens when you make humanity angry. All across the Sol system, similar scenes played out. On Mars, ground-based railgun batteries aimed their barrels toward space. In the asteroid belt, hidden platforms revealed themselves, their weapons charging. Around Earth's orbit, 12 massive defense stations took up positions in a protective sphere, and humanity's home fleet, over 100 warships that had never left the solar system, formed into battle groups. Captain Beth Reynolds commanded the battleship EDF Defiant, the sister ship to the Vengeance. She stood on her bridge watching the tactical display as more and more human ships appeared on sensors. "We outnumber them," her first officer said. 120 ships against their 300. "Numbers aren't everything," Beth replied. "They learned that at Kalthara. They're about to learn it again here." The Vorkan's second armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, and Supreme War Leader Thalrax, commanding the fleet, felt satisfaction. Intelligence had been correct. This was the human home world, the third planet from a yellow star covered in blue oceans and green continents. "Scan for defenses," he ordered. His sensor officer worked for several minutes, and Thalrax watched his confident expression slowly change to confusion, then to fear. "War Leader, I'm detecting over 100 warships, multiple defense stations, weapons platforms throughout the system. The asteroid belt is full of hidden installations. Sir, this entire solar system is a fortress." Thalrax felt doubt creeping into his mind. This was far more than he had expected. But Supreme Leader Krathnal had given him clear orders. Destroy the human homeworld. Show the galaxy that the Dominion could not be challenged. "We proceed as planned," he said firmly. "All ships, advance. Target the third planet." The Vorkan fleet moved forward, weapons charging. They expected the humans to meet them in space, to defend their world with ships and courage. What they didn't expect was what actually happened. The humans didn't come to them. They waited. As the Vorkan fleet crossed into the inner system, they suddenly found themselves surrounded. Defense platforms that had been hiding in asteroid fields activated. Weapons installations on Mars opened fire. The 12 massive defense stations lit up like small stars as their shields powered to full strength, and the human fleet, which had been positioned perfectly throughout the system, closed in from all sides. Captain Tony Garcia, commanding the cruiser EDF Retribution, gave the order to his crew. "Fire at will. Make them regret coming here." The Battle of Earth began with a storm of metal and fire that dwarfed even the fight at Kalthara. Human railguns spoke with voices like thunder gods, each shot carrying the kinetic force of small bombs. Missiles by the thousands filled space, their targeting computers guiding them unerringly toward Vorkan ships. The Vorkans tried to fight back, but they were caught in a trap. Everywhere they turned, human weapons waited. The defense stations alone carried enough firepower to match their entire fleet. The battleships and cruisers attacked with coordinated precision that made every shot count, and the smaller destroyers and frigates darted in and out, striking weak points and disabling enemy ships. Thalrax watched his fleet die around him, ships exploded by the dozen. Escape pods launched desperately as crews abandoned doomed vessels. His mighty armada, which should have crushed this primitive world, was being torn apart. "Retreat!" he screamed. "All ships, retreat to jump distance!" But the humans had planned for that too. Admiral Lisa Brennan, coordinating from Earth Defense Command, had positioned her ships to cut off escape routes. Every time a Vorkan ship tried to reach safe distance for a faster-than-light jump, human vessels were there to block them. Commander Lily Carter, temporarily assigned to Defense Station Guardian Prime, worked her tactical console with fierce concentration. She fed targeting data to the station's massive railgun batteries, watching as each shot found its mark. "Station Commander," she called to Captain Helen Morris. We've got a cluster of Vorkan battleships trying to break through Sector 7. Redirect batteries 12 through 18, Helen ordered. Don't let them through. The station's guns swiveled, tracking the fleeing Vorkan ships. The salvos that followed destroyed 4 battleships in 30 seconds. On his command ship, Thalrax finally understood what Fleetmaster Drakon had felt at Kalthara. The humans weren't just strong, they were terrifying. Their weapons couldn't be stopped, their defenses couldn't be broken, and their tactics were flawless. Supreme War Leader, we've lost over 200 ships, his second officer reported, his voice shaking. We can't win this. Thalrax looked at the tactical display. His proud armada was a scattered ruin. Less than a third of his ships remained functional, and those were damaged and dying. The humans hadn't even lost a single vessel. A few had taken damage, but none had been destroyed. Send a surrender signal, he said quietly, his pride shattered. Tell them we yield. The message reached Earth Defense Command. Admiral Lisa Brennan read it, then opened a channel to the entire system. Every ship, every station, every installation heard her voice. Cease fire. The Vorkans have surrendered. The guns fell silent. In the sudden quiet, the scale of the battle became clear. 237 Vorkan ships were destroyed or disabled. Human casualties were minimal. A few ships had taken damage. A handful of defense platforms would need repairs. But Earth stood untouched, protected by the warriors who called it home. Lisa opened a channel to the Vorkan flagship. Thalrax's defeated face appeared on her screen. You came to our world, Lisa said coldly. You came to murder our families, our children, our future. You thought we would be easy prey like the others you've conquered. You were wrong. Thalrax said nothing. What could he say? The news of the Second Armada's destruction reached Vorkath Prime within days. Supreme Leader Krathnal sat in his throne room, staring at the reports with disbelief that slowly turned to rage. 300 ships sent to punish the humans. Less than 60 had limped home, and those were so badly damaged they would take months to repair. How? He demanded, throwing the datapad across the room. How does a species we've never heard of destroy 2 fleets? Where did they come from? His intelligence chief stepped forward nervously. Supreme Leader, we've been analyzing the battles. The humans use weapons and tactics we've never encountered. Kinetic projectiles instead of energy weapons. Dense armor instead of lighter shielding. Their ships are built like fortresses, and their homeworld's defenses are beyond anything in known space. I don't want explanations, Krathnal roared. I want solutions. The other species are watching us. If we don't respond to this humiliation, our entire empire will crumble. Every conquered world will see us as weak. Across Vorkan space, he was right. Worlds that had suffered under Dominion rule for decades watched the news with growing hope. The mighty Vorkans had been beaten twice by the same enemy. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't invincible after all. On a mining world called Kelvor III, a rebellion began. Workers who had been slaves for 20 years rose up against their Vorkan overseers. They had nothing but mining tools and desperation, but they had something more important now. They had hope. Similar uprisings sparked across a dozen worlds. The Vorkan military, already weakened by the loss of 2 major fleets, struggled to contain them. Krathnal sent what ships he could spare, but it wasn't enough. The Empire was fracturing. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Brennan watched intelligence reports flowing in from across Vorkan space. Commander Greg Palmer stood beside her, highlighting key developments on the holographic display. The Dominion is falling apart, Greg said. Rebellions on 14 worlds. 3 regional governors have declared independence. Their remaining fleet is scattered trying to hold everything together. Good, Lisa said simply. What about the Galactic Council? They've sent diplomatic messages requesting a meeting. They want to understand who we are and what our intentions are. Lisa considered that. The Galactic Council was supposed to keep peace among the stars, but from what she had learned, they mostly talked while doing nothing. Still, humanity would need allies eventually. They couldn't fight the entire galaxy alone. "Accept the meeting," she said. "But make it clear that we're not asking permission for anything. The Vorkans started this war. We're going to finish it." 2 weeks after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan returned from Kalthara with the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. She brought with her representatives from the Kaltharon government and several other species that had suffered under Vorkan rule. Commander Zelathar stepped off the shuttle at Earth's orbital station, and his eyes went wide. The station alone was larger than his entire homeworld's capital city. Through the viewports, he could see Earth below, beautiful and blue and protected by a network of defenses that made his mind spin. "How?" he asked Lieutenant Jake Morrison, who had been assigned as his guide. "How did your people build all this?" Jake smiled. "We've been preparing for 70 years. We knew space might be dangerous. We just didn't know how dangerous until now." The diplomatic meetings began in Geneva, at a conference center built specifically for alien contact. Representatives from 23 different species gathered, including several from the Galactic Council. At the head of the table sat Admiral Lisa Brennan, Admiral Kate Sullivan, and Earth's diplomatic corps. The lead council member, an insectoid creature named Vexillar, spoke first. "We must begin by addressing humanity's aggressive actions against the Vorkan Dominion. While we understand you were defending Kalthara, the destruction of 2 Vorkan fleets represents a major escalation." Kate felt anger rising but kept her voice level. "Aggressive actions? The Vorkans were slaughtering an entire civilization. They came to our homeworld to do the same to us. What exactly should we have done? Ask them nicely to stop?" "The proper procedure is to bring complaints before the council," Vexlar said. "We would have investigated and investigated." Commander Zelathar stood up, his voice shaking with emotion. "Your council investigated for 6 weeks while my people died. You sent strongly worded messages while the Vorkans burned our cities. The humans did in 2 hours what you couldn't do in a lifetime. They saved us." Other voices joined in. A representative from a species called the Kelvori told of 40 years under Vorkan slavery. A delegate from the Thorani people described watching their homeworld burned because they refused to surrender. All of them had the same message. The council talked, but humanity acted. Captain Danny Hayes, attending as military liaison, leaned over to whisper to Kate. "They're more interested in procedure than justice." "Then we'll give them something they can't ignore," Kate whispered back. She stood up and the room fell silent. "Members of the council, let me be clear about Earth's position. We didn't ask to be drawn into this conflict. We received a distress call from people in desperate need, and we helped them because it was the right thing to do. The Vorkans responded by attacking our homeworld. They made their choice. And now," Kate continued, her voice hard as steel, "we're making ours. Humanity will not stand by while species like the Vorkans prey on the weak. We're going to liberate every world still under Dominion control. We're going to offer protection to any species that needs it. And we're going to make it clear to every would-be conqueror in the galaxy that those days are over." Vexillar's mandibles clicked nervously. "You cannot simply declare yourselves the galaxy's police force. That's not how civilized species behave." "Then maybe it's time for a new definition of civilized," Lisa said, standing beside Kate. "For too long, the strong have done what they want, while the weak suffer. The council talks about laws and procedures, but who enforces them? Who protects the species too small or too peaceful to defend themselves?" She looked around the room at the assembled aliens. "Humanity is offering something different. We're not asking to rule anyone. We're not building an empire. But we will defend those who can't defend themselves. And any species that values peace and justice is welcome to join us." The room erupted in debate. Some council members were outraged at humanity's audacity. Others, especially those who had suffered under conquest, nodded in agreement. Zelathar stood again and announced that Calthera would stand with Earth. One by one, other species followed. The Kelvori, freed from slavery by rebellions inspired by human victories. The Thorani, who had been waiting decades for someone to challenge the Vorkans. Even some council members, tired of endless debates that accomplished nothing, pledged their support. By the time the meeting ended, humanity had formed the nucleus of a new alliance. It wasn't official yet, and many details needed to be worked out. But the message was clear. A new power had emerged in the galaxy, and it fought for the weak instead of preying on them. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, Kate Sullivan led a joint human-alien task force toward the Vorkan core territories. Her fleet included the Vengeance and 20 other human warships, along with Caltheron cruisers, Kelvori destroyers, and ships from 6 other species. Captain Ben Foster's carrier group, including Commander Nicole Patterson's elite fighter squadrons, provided air superiority. Commander Lily Carter coordinated tactical operations from the Vengeance's bridge, and Captain Steve Warner's destroyer group served as the fleet's rapid response force. They arrived at Kelvor 3, where the rebellion had started. Vorkon forces still controlled the orbital stations, raining fire on the rebels below. But when they saw the human fleet drop out of faster-than-light travel, many simply abandoned their posts and fled. The battle for Kelvor 3 lasted 6 hours. The Vorkan defenders fought desperately, knowing that surrender meant facing justice for decades of cruelty. But they were outmatched. Human railguns tore through their defenses, Allied ships blocked their retreat, and when the shooting stopped, Kelvor 3 was free. Similar operations followed across Vorkan space. World after world was liberated. Some Vorkan forces surrendered immediately. Others fought until their ships were disabled and their crews captured. A few managed to escape into deep space, but their empire was broken beyond repair. On Vorkath Prime, Supreme Leader Krathnal watched his empire collapse around him. Regional governors declared independence. Military commanders refused orders. Rebellions burned across half his territory, and the humans kept coming, unstoppable and relentless. "We should negotiate," his intelligence chief said quietly, "before we lose everything." Krathnal wanted to refuse, wanted to fight to the bitter end. But he looked at what remained of his once mighty dominion and saw only ruins. Pride had cost him everything. "Send a message to the humans," he said, his voice hollow. "Tell them the Vorkan Dominion formally surrenders. Tell them we accept their terms." The message reached Earth within hours. Admiral Lisa Brennan read it with satisfaction but no joy. Too many people had died for her to celebrate, but at least the killing could stop now. "Broadcast our response on all frequencies," she told her communications officer. "I want every species in the galaxy to hear this." When the channel opened, Lisa spoke with authority that carried across the stars. "This is Admiral Lisa Brennan of Earth Defense Command. The Vorkan Dominion has surrendered unconditionally. All Vorkan forces are ordered to stand down immediately. Any who continue fighting will be treated as war criminals." She paused, then continued. "To the species who suffered under Vorkan rule, you are free. Humanity and our allies will help you rebuild. To other empires who think conquest is acceptable, watch what happened here. Learn from it. The galaxy has changed. Those who prey on the weak will face consequences." 6 months after the fall of the Vorkan Dominion, the Galactic Council met on the neutral world of Sanctuary Station. The massive orbital platform floated above a beautiful world that had been designated as diplomatic territory centuries ago. But this meeting was different from all the others that had come before. For the first time in galactic history, humanity sat at the table as an equal. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked into the Grand Hall with Captain Danny Hayes and Commander Lily Carter at her side. She wore her dress uniform, dark blue with gold trim, and the medals on her chest told the story of the war. Around her, representatives from over 40 species gathered, some curious, some fearful, and some openly grateful. Commander Zelathar greeted her warmly. The Caltheron leader had recovered from his injuries and now served as his people's representative to the council. "Admiral Sullivan, it's good to see you again." "You too, Commander," Kate replied with a genuine smile. "How's the rebuilding going?" "Slowly but steadily. Your engineers have been incredibly helpful. We should have full orbital capabilities restored within another month." As they talked, other species approached. A Kelvori delegate thanked Kate personally for ending 40 years of slavery. A Thorani representative presented her with a traditional gift, a crystal sculpture that represented hope. Even some of the more cautious council members acknowledged her with respectful nods. When the meeting began, Vexlar, still the council's lead administrator despite his earlier objections, called the session to order. "We are here to discuss humanity's proposal for a new defensive alliance and restructuring of galactic security protocols." Kate stood, and the room fell silent. Over the past months, she had become a figure known across the galaxy. The admiral who had saved Calthera, the warrior who had defended Earth, the leader who had broken the Vorkan dominion. "Thank you, Council Leader," she began. "Humanity comes before you today not to demand or threaten, but to offer partnership. We've all seen what happened when the Vorkans were allowed to conquer freely. We've all witnessed the cost of inaction. It's time for that to change." She activated a holographic display showing her proposal. "We propose the creation of the Galactic Defense Force, a joint military organization dedicated to protecting peaceful species from aggression. Member species would contribute ships and personnel based on their capabilities. The force would respond to threats quickly and decisively, not after weeks of debate." A council member from the Draxon Confederation spoke up. "And who would command this force? Humanity, I assume." "Initially, yes," Kate answered honestly. "Earth has the military strength and the willingness to act. But command would be shared with representatives from all major contributors, and any decision to use force would require approval from a joint council, not one species acting alone." Another delegate, a being made of crystalline structures called Varnell, asked the question many were thinking. "How do we know humanity won't become what the Vorkans were? You have proven your strength. What prevents you from using it to build your own empire?" It was a fair question, and Kate had expected it. "Because that's not who we are," she said simply. "Humanity didn't come to the stars looking for conquest. We came looking for friends. When we found people in need, we helped them. When we were attacked, we defended ourselves, but we've never taken a single world that wasn't ours. We've never enslaved a single species. And we never will." She looked around the room at the assembled aliens. "You want proof? Look at what we've done since the war ended. We could have occupied Vorkan worlds. We could have claimed their territory. Instead, we helped former Dominion slaves establish their own governments. We protected them while they rebuilt. We asked for nothing in return except friendship." Commander Zelathar stood. "I can speak to humanity's character. They saved my people when no one else would. They asked for no payment, no territory, no tribute. They simply helped because it was right. That is not the behavior of conquerors." Other voices joined in. The Kelvori delegate told of human engineers teaching them advanced technology freely. A representative from New Theron described human medical teams treating their wounded without charge. Species after species testified to humanity's generosity and honor. The debate continued for hours. Some council members remained skeptical, worried about giving too much power to any one species. Others argued that humanity had earned the right to lead. But slowly, a consensus formed. As the sun set on the world below Sanctuary Station, Vexlar called for a vote. All in favor of establishing the Galactic Defense Force under the proposed structure? Hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages of all kinds rose around the chamber. The measure passed with overwhelming support. Kate felt a weight settle on her shoulders along with the pride. Humanity had just accepted responsibility for protecting half the galaxy. It was an honor and a burden she would carry for the rest of her life. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Brennan watched the vote through a live transmission. She stood in her office at Earth Defense Command, looking out at the planet that had become the center of a new galactic alliance. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, now promoted to commander and serving as her aide, brought her a message. "Ma'am, we're receiving applications from 17 different species wanting to join the Defense Force, and that's just in the first hour." Lisa smiled. "Looks like people are ready for change. Start processing them. We'll need training facilities, integration protocols, and cultural liaisons for each species." "Already working on it, Admiral. Commander Greg Palmer is coordinating with our allies." Over the next months, the Galactic Defense Force took shape. Human ships formed the core, their advanced weapons and defenses setting the standard. But they were joined by vessels from across the galaxy. Caltheron cruisers with their excellent sensors, Kelvori destroyers built for speed, Thorani support ships with advanced medical facilities. Captain Ben Foster took command of the first integrated carrier group, with pilots from 6 different species flying together. Commander Nicole Patterson led the fighter training program, teaching alien pilots human tactics and maneuvers. The cultural differences were challenging at first. Humans operated on different sleep cycles than most species. Human food was too spicy for some aliens and too bland for others. Communication styles varied wildly, but slowly they learned to work together. Captain Steve Warner commanded a mixed patrol group protecting the former Vorkan territories. His crew included humans, Caltheroni, Kelvori, and 3 other species. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez served as his first officer, and she had learned to speak 4 different alien languages. "It's strange," Steve told her one day as they watched their diverse crew working together on the bridge. 6 months ago, we barely knew aliens existed. Now we're serving alongside them like we've been doing it forever." "That's humanity for you," Amy replied. "We adapt quickly. Besides, they're not so different from us. Everyone wants safety, peace, and a chance for their families to thrive." But not everyone in the galaxy welcomed the changes. Some species had profited from the old system of might makes right, some had been planning their own conquests before humanity appeared. And some simply didn't trust that the humans were as noble as they claimed. In the shadow sectors beyond Council space, a new threat was growing. The Kresh Imperium, a militant empire that had been watching humanity's rise with alarm, began gathering its forces. Their leader, War Master Kreltar, looked at the formation of the Galactic Defense Force and saw a rival that needed to be eliminated. "Let them celebrate their victory over the weak Vorkans," he told his generals. "When we strike, they will learn what real power looks like." But intelligence reports of the Kresh buildup reached Earth quickly. The new Galactic Information Network, which shared threat data freely among allied species, detected the military preparations. Admiral Lisa Brennan called a meeting of the Defense Force Command Council. Admiral Kate Sullivan attended via hologram from her flagship. Commanders from a dozen species joined the discussion. "The Kresh are building up forces along the frontier," Lisa began. "Intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive within 6 months. If they attack, it won't just be against us. They'll target our allies, too. Then we prepare, Kate said firmly. We've been training for this. Joint exercises, coordinated tactics, integrated command structures. If the Kresh want a war, we'll give them one they won't forget. The preparations intensified. Human shipyards went into overdrive, building new vessels and refitting Allied ships with improved weapons. Training exercises became more frequent and more realistic. The Defense Force grew from 40 ships to over 300 in a matter of months. But something else happened, too. Species that had been considering joining the Alliance made their decisions. The Drayan Coalition, a group of 12 peaceful worlds, formally requested membership. The Silicate Communes, beings made of living crystal, offered their unique technological knowledge. Even some former Vorkan client states, seeking protection and redemption, asked to join. The Alliance wasn't just growing stronger militarily. It was becoming a true community of species dedicated to mutual defense and cooperation. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, a ceremony was held on Kalthara Prime. A massive monument was unveiled in the capital city. It showed the moment the human fleet had arrived, ships emerging from faster-than-light travel to save a dying world. Admiral Kate Sullivan attended the ceremony along with many of the crew members who had fought in that first battle. Commander Zelathar gave a speech that brought tears to many eyes, both human and alien. "A year ago, we faced extinction," he said. "We sent out a desperate call for help, not believing anyone would answer. But they came, strangers from across the galaxy who owed us nothing. They risked everything to save people they had never met. They fought for us because it was right." He paused, looking directly at Kate. "Humanity showed us that the galaxy could be better than it was. That strength could be used to protect instead of to conquer. That different species could work together instead of fearing each other. They gave us hope when we had none. And now, together, we're building the future we all deserve." Kate stood and addressed the crowd. Thousands of Kaltharoni had gathered, along with humans and representatives from dozens of other species. The speech was broadcast across the galaxy. "A year ago, we received a call for help," she said. "We didn't know who sent it. We didn't know if we could win. But we knew we had to try. Because that's what good people do. They help those in need, regardless of the cost." She looked out at the diverse crowd, at the future taking shape before her eyes. "The galaxy is changing. The age of unchallenged conquest is over. The age of cooperation and mutual defense has begun. There will be challenges ahead. There will be those who resist this change. But as long as species are willing to stand together, to protect each other, to value justice over power, we will prevail." The crowd erupted in cheers that echoed across the city. Human and alien voices joined together in celebration of what they had accomplished and anticipation of what was to come. That night, as Kate stood on the balcony of her quarters looking up at the unfamiliar stars, Commander Lily Carter joined her. "Do you think we're ready for what comes next?" Lily asked. Kate thought about the question. She thought about the Kresh building their forces. She thought about the challenges of maintaining an alliance across dozens of species. She thought about the responsibility humanity had accepted. "Ready or not, here we are," she said finally. The galaxy needed someone to stand up and say enough is enough. Someone to prove that the strong could protect the weak instead of preying on them. We became that someone, almost by accident. But now that we're here, we're going to see it through. She smiled at Lily. "Besides, we're human. We've faced impossible odds before and come out on top. Humanity didn't become the galaxy's defenders by playing it safe. We got here by doing what was right, no matter how difficult. That's not going to change." Far away, on Earth, children learned about the war in school. They studied the Battle of Kalthara, the defense of Earth, and the liberation of the Vorkan territories. But more importantly, they learned about why those battles mattered, about standing up for others, about using strength to protect instead of to dominate, about the responsibility that comes with power. A new generation was growing up knowing that humanity's place in the galaxy wasn't just about exploring or trading. It was about being the guardians that peaceful species could rely on, the warriors who answered when the innocent called for help, the friends who stood by their allies no matter the cost, and somewhere in the deep darkness between stars, ancient monitoring systems recorded it all. The progenitors, long vanished from the galaxy, had left behind technology designed to watch and wait, to see if any species would emerge with both the strength to fight and the wisdom to protect. Humanity had proven themselves worthy of that ancient hope. They had become what the progenitors had dreamed of billions of years ago, guardians of the weak, defenders of the innocent, and builders of a better future. The beacon that had called them to Kalthara was just the first. Others waited throughout the galaxy, ready to activate when needed. And when they did, humanity would answer, not for glory, not for conquest, but because it was the right thing to do. The age of humanity among the stars had truly begun, and the galaxy was better for it. And to those who value peace and justice, Earth offers friendship and protection. Together, we will build a galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them, where disputes are settled with words instead of weapons, where every species can prosper without fear. The message ended, but its impact spread across known space. Humanity had done the impossible. They had defeated a major galactic empire, liberated dozens of worlds, and offered hope to countless species who had given up on ever seeing justice. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity's place in it. "I'm going to let you live," Lisa continued. "You and your surviving crews. You're going to return to your empire and you're going to deliver a message for me. Tell your leaders this. The Vorkon Dominion's days of conquest are over. Any Vorkan ship that attacks innocent people will face Earth's wrath. Any world that still suffers under your rule will be liberated. And if you ever threaten humanity again, we won't be so merciful." She paused, making sure he understood every word. "We didn't ask for this war. But now that you've started it, we're going to finish it. Go home, Thalrax. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity has had enough." The channel closed. Thalrax ordered his surviving ships to limp toward the edge of the system. As they retreated, they passed close to Mars, and saw the massive railgun batteries tracking their movement. They saw the defense stations, still fully powered and ready. They saw the human fleet, barely scratched, watching them go. The message was clear. Earth was untouchable, and humanity was done playing nice with bullies. Kate nodded once. Smart choice. She switched to the fleet channel. "All ships, secure the Vorkan vessels. Medical teams, render assistance to the Kaltharon defenders." Then she opened a new channel, broadcasting to every functional ship in the system. Her voice was hard and clear. "Let this be a message to anyone who preys on the weak. Humanity will not stand by while innocents suffer. The Vorkan Dominion's reign of terror ends today. And any other empire that thinks conquest is acceptable had better think again." On Kalthara Prime, billions of people watched the sky as the human ships took up protective positions around their world. Children asked their parents who had saved them. The adults had no answer except hope and gratitude. In the ruins of the Vorkan fleet, survivors sent panicked messages to their homeworlds, telling of the terrifying newcomers who had appeared from nowhere and destroyed them in minutes. The messages spoke of weapons that couldn't be stopped, ships that couldn't be killed, and warriors who showed no fear. The galaxy was about to learn a new name, Earth, and it would learn to respect it. The order went out within hours. Across Earth's orbital shipyards, warships that had never seen real combat began preparing for battle. The EDF Vengeance, humanity's largest and most powerful ship, received its orders. 43 warships would make the journey, carrying the best crews Earth had to offer. Captain Danny Hayes stood on the bridge of his destroyer, watching Earth shrink behind him as the fleet accelerated. Beside him, Commander Lily Carter checked their weapon systems one more time. "Think we can do this?" Lily asked quietly. Danny looked at the stars ahead, toward a world they had never seen, to help people they had never met. "We're about to find out," he said, "but I'll tell you something. If there are monsters out there who think they can destroy innocent people without consequences, they're about to learn a hard lesson. Nobody threatens the defenseless while humanity draws breath." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, disappearing from Earth's sensors. They were racing toward the Calthera system, toward a battle that would change everything. Behind them, billions of humans waited and hoped. Ahead of them, an alien civilization prayed for a miracle they didn't believe would come. In 6 days, the Vorkan Dominion would discover that humanity had arrived, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same.